Papua, you will roll your dice and then address any crisis dice. You either pay a coin or lose one of your meeples to address this dice. Then you'll take the other dice and use them in their numbers. In this case, the 1 has already been assigned to an action space on the board, so we're just going to assign a worker for each dice there. You don't have to, but you can. Then, because the 4 has not been assigned to the board yet, we can assign it to any space we like, and I'm also going to put 2 workers here. Each worker you place will cost an energy. So in this case, that would cost 4 energy, but I'm going to decide to pay 2 fish, so it only costs me 2 energy, keeping me at the top of the energy track and in first player. Here in this space, this is for tents, which essentially get you more dice to roll each round and let you set dice to certain values before you roll. On this space, you place people there and you get to take a bonus. The player with the most people there gets to take the first choice, and then so on. This space allows you to get coins by rolling a certain amount of dice and taking them away from each other. Here there's going to be adding them to each other. So you roll the dice and you add together the highest number with the amount of people you have in there to get your coins. The one for getting fish is a bit different. Here you roll the same amount of dice and you take your highest from your lowest and add it to the workers you have there. This space has been blocked this round, but this is where you can get these cards which upgrade and become part of a set collection for endgame scoring. Your own personal shield gives you a breakdown of all the set collection and endgame scoring points. The last spot is the auction place, where you will gain many of the cards for set collection. To do this, behind your player screen you have the 3 sections represented, and you will place a meeple, at least 1 meeple, and at least 1 coin to bid for a card. If you win the bid, you will pay the meeple and the coins. If you lose the bid, you will pay energy for the meeples you have used. Everyone pays energy for the meeples they have used. At the end of the game, the person who scored most points through set collection and the gameplay itself wins. I've not had too much experience with Devir games. I demoed a couple of their games a few years ago at the expo and found them to be okay. So when Papua turned up on my doorstep, I didn't know what to expect. I wondered if it might just not be for me, or it wouldn't be, it'd be good but not good enough. I was really pleasantly surprised to find a very complete and together game here. The use of dice in this game is really cool because it's not just dice placement, but if you roll a number that hasn't yet been placed on the board, you get to choose where that goes. So this makes being first player super interesting because you're kind of dictating for the rest of the round where the numbered spots are. If you roll enough numbers, you might roll all the same number. So it's kind of really interesting where you get the choice of where you want to stack your workers. But countering this is this energy system where your energy is always going down as you perform actions, as you bid for the set collection cards. So you're kind of trying to balance the idea of slamming all your workers onto the board some rounds and taking that energy hit and then potentially having to feed your workers, between how you spread out your own dice and how you put those onto the board. Another nice feature which kind of balances this first player choice is the fact that the player with the lowest energy gets to veto one of those spots every round, so they can kind of look and think what would be most useful to you this round and not hurt me too much, and they can slap an X on it so that spot cannot be used this round. The game works really, really well. The bidding for the set collection, that's my only kind of negative, not in the kind of mechanics of it, but the way you reveal all at once. I think it would have been much better to resolve each one at the time, because you've got these player screens to hide some of your resources, and then you have to kind of scoop everything into your hand, assign your resources, your people and your coins all at once, flip that down while you're still keeping, the rest of your resources in your hand, trying to hide them from people. And it just that's the only bit that felt a little clunky to me, and I think it would have been much better to put bids in your hand and resolve each location at a time, one at a time. But I can understand why they wanted to do the simultaneous one, because someone who might not have bet on one might then bet on another that they wouldn't have bet on. But it did feel a little bit clunky. I feel like there could have been a better way of doing that without revealing suddenly what everything behind your player screen or having to scoop it into your hand. The set collection is mega. There's the sets of the locations you go to, there's the sets of the event cards that you can take, and it all works really well. There's various different ways of scoring points that are all kind of viable. You can try and score a lot of points in game, that's perfectly possible, or you can go for the end game scoring, which isn't overpowered in the sense that if someone's done a lot of in-game scoring and just a little bit of end-game scoring, that's going to put them in a really decent position. I love the use of the huts for dice mitigation, the fact that the more you get to know the locals in the theme of the game, the more dice you roll, but the more you can also set to whatever you want before you roll. And it's quite clever that's before you roll because it doesn't make it too powerful. I think there's a good effort at theme, as with most Euros though. You know, you're feeding people, you're getting coins. How connected it is to the theme that's applied to the game, that's debatable. In some ways it's quite dry. I'm not a stickler for this sort of thing, so I don't tend to notice that sort of thing. It doesn't tend to bother me. Instead, I kind of notice when a theme does draw me in. I don't notice when there is, I kind of expect there to be a certain level of dryness in games because on one level they're all abstracted. So this is on the drier side, but I do like the kind of attempt with the huts, with the workers, with that costing energy, and with the energy being one of the end game signals. You could really force the end game if you felt you were in a good position. So there's loads to like in Paul. Let's just call it Paul. So let's talk. Intimidation factor. Yeah, there's a bit more going on here than your kind of standard gateway game. I think new players would find some of the ideas just that next level up or a bit confusing, so there is some intimidation. Although for me as a kind of more seasoned player, having the freedom to choose which number is on which worker spot is great. I think that would add an extra layer of complication and intimidation for a new player. So perhaps they need to play a dice placement game first and get the kind of sense of that before you start faffing around with all the places. So there is that. And also there is a lot going on. There's a fair few different things to collect. There's the different spaces, you need money, you need fish. So there is a level of intimidation here, I would say, that even for a seasoned player will take you half a game to get into the rhythm of things. The rulebook was decent, no problems with the rulebook at all. In fact, I think it was better than decent. Didn't have many questions. I'm trying to remember how many times we checked BGG. I think it might have only been once on whether you had to play a coin with a worker for your exhibition. We said thematically you do because exhibitions cost, so that's how we went with that. But yeah, in general, a pretty good rule book and fun. Had a lot of fun with this one. Definitely one that I would play again. Would I add it to my collection? Absolutely. I think there's room for a dice placement game like this in my collection, is because it has that difference to other games. So yeah, Paul was a massive hit for us. One that got us thinking, that played reasonably quickly, gave us some interesting choices, but again, perhaps not a gateway game. So if you've played dice placement games before, worker placement games before, and you would like to check out something different, then it's one that's well worth trying to play. Thanks very much for watching Board Deck and Dice. We will see you next time. That sounded like a question. I did a bit of a Ron Burgundy there. Cut.